The Sabbath. When did God make the Sabbath? In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth, Genesis 1:1. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made. Genesis 2:2-3. When did the days of creation begin and end? And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. Genesis 1:5. So the Sabbath starts Friday at sundown and ends Saturday at sundown. What is the purpose of the Sabbath, and who was it made for? And he said unto them, The Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. Therefore the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath. Mark 2:27-28. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work. Exodus 20:8-10. From one Sabbath to another shall all flesh come to worship before me, says the Lord. Isaiah 66:23. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. What event caused God's people to stop keeping the Sabbath, and what did God do to set them free so they could serve him? During the time of Joseph, a famine took place and God's people ended up in Egypt, where they eventually became slaves for 400 years and were forced to work on the Sabbath. God then set them free by sending plagues so they could serve him and keep his laws, including the seventh-day Sabbath. And the Lord spake unto Moses, Go unto Pharaoh, and say unto him, Thus says the Lord, Let my people go, that they may serve me. Exodus 8:1. And the king of Egypt said unto them, Wherefore do ye, Moses and Aaron, let the people from their works? Get you unto your burdens. And Pharaoh said, Behold, the people of the land now are many, and you make them rest from their burdens. And the tale of bricks which they did make heretofore, you shall lay upon them, ye shall not diminish aught thereof, for they be idle. Therefore they cry, saying, Let us go and sacrifice to our God. Go therefore now and work, for there shall no straw be given you, yet shall you deliver the tale of bricks. Exodus 5:4-5, 8-18. After God delivered them from their bondage in Egypt, did he have to remind them to keep the Sabbath? And Moses said, 6 days ye shall gather it, manna, but on the seventh day, which is the Sabbath, in it there shall be none. And it came to pass that there went out some of the people on the seventh day for to gather, and they found none. And the Lord said unto Moses, How long refuse ye to keep my commandments and my laws? See, for that the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore he giveth you on the 6th day the bread of 2 days. Abide ye every man in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. So the people rested on the 7th day. Exodus 16:25-30. Before God gave them a written copy of the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai, we can see that God did want them to keep the seventh-day Sabbath that he had given them at creation. While they were in Egypt, they had forgotten it, which is why the 4th commandment starts with, Remember. Because they forgot his laws, God gave them the 10 Commandments written on stone with his own finger. Let's look at the 4th commandment regarding the Sabbath. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son nor thy daughter, thy manservant nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Exodus 20:8-11. What is the Sabbath also a sign of? Moreover also I gave them my Sabbaths to be a sign between me and them, that they might know that I am the Lord that sanctify them. Ezekiel 20:12. Sanctify them through thy truth. Thy word is truth. John 17:17. With my whole heart have I sought thee. O let me not wander from thy commandments. Thy word have I hid in mine heart, that I might not sin against thee. Psalms 119:10-11. And hallow my Sabbaths, and they shall be a sign between me and you, that you may know that I am the Lord your God. Ezekiel 20:20. So the Sabbath is a sign of creation and redemption. Did Jesus and his apostles keep the Sabbath? And he, Jesus, came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day, and stood up to read. Luke 4:16. And Paul, as his manner was, went in unto them, and 3 Sabbath days reasoned with them out of the Scriptures. Acts 17:2. But when they, Paul and his party, departed from Perga, they came to Antioch in Pisidia, and went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and sat down. Acts 13:14. And he, Paul, reasoned in the synagogue every Sabbath, and persuaded the Jews and the Greeks. Acts 18:4. Was the Sabbath just for the Jews? No, it was given for all of humanity at creation 2,500 years before there were any Jews. Genesis 2:1-3. Also the sons of the stranger that join themselves to the Lord, to serve him, every one that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it, and taketh hold of my covenant, even them will I bring to my holy mountain, for mine house shall be called an house of prayer for all people. Isaiah 56:6-7. And when the Jews were gone out of the synagogue, the Gentiles besought that these words might be preached to them the next Sabbath. Acts 13:42. Did they keep the Sabbath after his crucifixion, and was it clear which day of the week was the Sabbath? And that day was the preparation, Friday, and the Sabbath drew on. Luke 23:54. And they returned and prepared spices and ointments, and rested the Sabbath day, 7th day, Saturday, according to the commandment. Luke 23:56. Now upon the first day of the week, Sunday, very early in the morning, they came unto the sepulchre, bringing the spices which they had prepared, and certain others with them. Luke 24:1. Did Jesus expect them to keep the Sabbath even after his death? Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. Matthew 5:17-18. And when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. Luke 21:20-21. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. Matthew 24:20. This was referring to the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. In the book of Revelation, which day did John say he was in the Spirit? I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and heard behind me a great voice as of a trumpet. Revelation 1:10. And he said unto them, The Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. Therefore the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath. Mark 2:27-28. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. Exodus 20:10. So here we see that Jesus in Mark 2:28 said that he was Lord of the Sabbath, which he kept on Saturday. So when John said that he was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, he was referring to the Sabbath, which was on Saturday, as we saw in Luke 23:56. Does Colossians 2:14-17 say that the seventh-day Sabbath was done away with at the cross? No, God's seventh-day Sabbath, which was instituted at creation before there was sin, was never abolished. In Leviticus 23, there were 7 yearly festivals, which were also called Sabbaths, that foreshadowed the cross. Those were the Sabbaths which were ended at the cross. Do the disciples keep Sunday as a holy day in Acts 20:7-12? No, Paul was about to depart the next day and not return before his death, Acts 20:25, so he kept preaching until midnight on a Saturday, Acts 20:7. So that was not their new day of rest, as it was just a farewell meeting before his journey. They also broke bread as they did daily from house to house, Acts 2:46, so that was not of religious significance either. Did God change the Sabbath day? No, as we can see from the previous scriptures in this lesson, Jesus and his disciples always kept the Sabbath on the seventh day, which is Saturday. So then why do so many Christians go to church on Sunday instead of Saturday? The scriptures mention that someone would, quote, think to change times and laws, end quote, in Daniel 7:25. Watch the next lesson entitled Mark of the Beast to find out more. How long was the Sabbath intended to be kept? For as the new heavens and the new earth which I will make shall remain before me, says the Lord, so shall your seed and your name remain. And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, says the Lord. Isaiah 66:22-23.